March 26, 2024. The captain of the Dali is boarding his ship at the port of Baltimore, preparing to set sail for Singapore. Little did he know, he is about to end up in one of the worst shipping disasters in American history.
A search operation is continuing for at least 6 people thrown into a river in the U.S. city of Baltimore.
For you to see the full picture of what happened and to understand the importance of this mysterious black smoke coming out of the ship, it's essential to understand the scene setter for this tragedy. The ship that ran into the bridge is called the Dali. She's a 9-year-old container ship registered in Singapore. Maersk is currently leasing her to carry goods. As far as size, she is approximately 948 feet long, 147 feet wide, and with a draft of 36 feet. Her deadweight tonnage comes in at a whopping 116,000 tons. At the time, her planned voyage was to take her from Baltimore through the Chesapeake Bay, across the Atlantic, around southern Africa, and pull into port in Colombo, Sri Lanka 26 days later. But what is so special about the port? The Port of Baltimore is the 17th largest port by volume in the United States, with around 37 million tons of cargo and over $80 billion worth of trade. The Port of Baltimore supports 15,000 direct jobs and over 150,000 indirect jobs. As such, the current trade value of the port is around $15 million per day. However, there is a problem. Unlike many major port cities, Baltimore has no wide-open river connecting it to open water. Instead, the city has dredged a narrow channel from Chesapeake Bay to the city's inner harbor. Only inside this channel, which is just 50 feet deep and 200 yards wide, can these large merchant vessels like the Dali operate. Adding complexity to this already congested transit is having to go underneath the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Due to the rising and lowering of daily tides, it's only possible to go under the bridge at certain times of the day. It was the lowest tide for that morning at just after midnight, offering the safest window to pass underneath the bridge. Because of this, the pilots decided it was time to go. But what happened in the hour before the disaster? It was just after midnight on March 26, 2024. There's a flurry of activity on the motor vessel Dolly as she prepares to get underway. Down in the engineering spaces, engineers are starting engines, generators, air conditioning units, seawater cooling pumps, and other auxiliary equipment required to get underway. Up forward, several able seamen place the anchor at the tip and prepare it for letting go. This is crucial in case of an emergency, since dropping the anchor in a safe spot is better than continuing to drift. Keep this in mind as it will become critical later on. Topside, more able seamen lead junior undesignated deckhands as they prepare to take in all lines. However, they have not yet received word from the master. Up in the pilot house, the ship's control center, the master and first mate are finishing final preparations to get underway. They ensure each item is accounted for as they go through their checklists. Are all navigational radars rotating and radiating? Have all containers been verified as strapped down? Have all shore services like potable water, shore power, sewage, internet, and phone lines been disconnected? Have steering gear checks been conducted? Have the main engines been started? The 22-person crew is completing all of these things and more. As the first mate completes the checklist, he reports to the master that Dolly is ready to get underway. However, they're waiting for one more person. Just before the brow is taken off, a person known as a pilot walks on board. And no, this is not an airline pilot. In the maritime industry, pilots are highly skilled and highly trained mariners who are tasked with guiding ships in and out of port. While the ship's captain is ultimately responsible for the ship at all times, it is customary to obey all recommendations of the pilot as they know the ins and outs of a particular port, down to how certain buoys trend, how the current trends in a particular area, and other critical data that no master would know even if sailing into that port often. Once the pilot gets on board, the master gives permission to the first mate to get underway. With that, a crane swings the brow off the ship, and the pilot makes up tugs both forward and aft. Once tugs are made up, the master orders are to take in all lines. With that command, the line handlers on the pier cast off the lines, and the deckhands bring them in. Under the skillful eye of the pilot and assistance from the tugs, the Dolly is now underway and begins her long transit to sea. Little did they know, disaster would soon strike. Once she got underway, the Dolly had to carefully navigate the port's inner harbor before she came left into the channel. As she did so, she came about to a course of roughly 140 degrees true. It's unknown what speed she was going at, but with a 36-foot draft and a channel depth of 50 feet, she was likely going no more than 8 to 10 knots, since going too fast in such a constrained area actually bring a ship's stern down into the bottom at high speeds. To prevent this phenomenon known as squatting, the Dolly would have to be traveling at its reduced speed until she cleared the bridge. As she settled out into the channel, she hugged the right side of the channel, as the rules of the road, the legal regulations dictating how mariners operate ships, dictate she should be as far starboard as possible when transitioning a narrow channel, which this channel is just about 200 yards wide. However, once she steadied on her easterly course, things started going wrong. Though it's unknown when the first loss of power happened, video evidence shows the first loss of power on board at 1:24 in the morning. When a ship loses power, it is a huge deal, since every vital system on board needs power to operate, including the steering and propulsion systems. According to the pilots who were guiding the Dolly to sea, after the ship first lost power, they recommended that the captain move the rudder to port. At this time, there were 0.2 knots of current to the south, which might not seem like a lot, but at such a slow speed, it was pushing the Dolly's bow to starboard towards the bridge. More than likely, the standby generator started and resumed taking the electrical load for the ship. At this moment, the ship was just 400 yards away from the bridge. At a speed of 10 knots, this meant that in less than 90 seconds, the ship would be under the bridge and heading towards open waters. But fate would say otherwise. After regaining power, the next video evidence shows that from 1:26 to 1:27 a.m., the Dolly lost and regained power at least 2 more times. This could have happened because the standby generator may not have been able to take the load properly and load shed everything, so that it wouldn't generate reverse power and cause an explosion. However, this caused yet another loss of control of the ship, as it was mere seconds away from disaster. In those final few moments, according to pilots, they at first ordered the anchor to be let go. Letting go the anchor, though not ideal in a narrow channel, would immediately arrest the ship's forward motion, though it would certainly cause damage to either the anchor hawser or the hull, as the ship's momentum carried it over the anchor chain. It would have been much preferable than hitting the bridge, but there was just one problem. Due to the loss of power, the hydraulic motors could not operate, and the seamen could not disengage the brake, because the seamen down below in the windlass room could not let go of the anchor. In a last-ditch effort to save the ship, the pilot and master ordered the helmsman to come all back full. This meant that the ship was going to begin to go backwards so as not to hit the bridge, as indicated by the huge plume of black smoke, which meant that an order was given to inject a considerable quantity of fuel into the engines, but it was not enough. Remember earlier how the pilot said they ordered the rudder to port to compensate for the southerly current? When the helmsman put the baking bell on to go astern, his rudder was still to port. Though the ship was moving forward still, the backing bell caused a reverse effect up forward, meaning that a port rudder astern made the bow turn to the right. This is the best explanation from what is seen in the video when the ship tries to go backward at the last second, but instead, the bow comes hard to starboard and collides with the bridge. In mere seconds, the bridge collapses. But were there any people on the bridge? According to the Coast Guard and Baltimore police, 8 construction workers were on the bridge at the time. As of the making of this video, 2 people have been recovered. All ship personnel are safe. 1 worker has since been released, while the other remains in critical condition in the hospital. The other 6 remain unaccustomed, but due to the extreme cold temperatures in the water, even if workers had survived the fall, they would have perished by now from hypothermia. As such, the U.S. Coast Guard has officially transitioned the rescue operation to a recovery mission. As for the federal response, President Biden has already committed to rebuilding the bridge as soon as possible.
I told them we're going to send all the federal resources they need as we respond to this emergency.
Currently, hundreds of Transportation Safety Board inspectors, FBI agents, and state police officers are investigating the accident. The FBI has already ruled out potential terrorism and is instead focusing on supporting the National Transportation Safety Board as it continues its investigation. Though few details besides these are known now, in the days and weeks that follow, we will surely learn more about the accident and whether our theories about what happened are true or not. But in the meantime, we can only hope that maybe, just maybe, some of those who fell into the water are okay. And if not, that changes will come to ensure a disaster of this magnitude does not happen again. Bye for now.